Yeah, it's funny how that subject came up, because I think I'm asked about 50 times a day, which encoder to buy, which kind of made me realize that there's still so many questions out there, right? And you would think, 5 years after coming to this damn trade show, everyone would have got it by now. But obviously, that is not the case. I'll make my pitch about Teradek very, very short and sweet, right? Just a couple of slides, maybe 15 and 20, just so you kind of know the depth that we go into and the kind of customers that we can support. And then I'll talk about a couple of little problems that I see day in, day out, from everyone that wants to stream a cattle show to a NASA event to a school football game. And it's really the same reoccurring questions we have all the time. So unlike most of the companies that are exhibiting here, I probably had the shortest ride, because we're just down the road here in Irvine. We've been based down here all of our lives, but we do have worldwide presence with offices in the Ukraine and stores in LA and also New York. So, we've grown over the last 5 years from about 20 people to about 130 geeks. And there's a lot more. Anyhow, so everything that we do is designed by ourselves in our offices, and I wish we had the time to take all of you by bus down to our locations, at least for a couple of drinks or two, just to show you, a manufacturing facility, because that's quite rare in America nowadays. Anyhow, some of the customers that we support, typical from churches to big agencies to the White House. I can tell you a funny story of when I went to the White House the other week. Actually, it was just after the inauguration of our now president that I got a call from the White House that Mr. Trump would like to stream, would like to see our gear. So, any of you guys seen that movie Veeped, or this TV show Veeped, right? Well, it's a TV show about the Vice President of America always referring to the president as POTUS, derogatorily, damn POTUS this and damn POTUS that. So I go down to the White House, I demonstrate the cube, which I'll show you what that is, but it has the ability to join any Wi-Fi network in a building. Next day I get an email from the White House videographer that POTUS would like to stream from any room in the White House. And I was like, oh my God, even they're being rude about him. I did not realize that POTUS actually stood for President of the United States. Anyhow, we can see that he does a lot of damage with that still. And I hope he uses our gear to do it. Anyhow, so that question, which encoder to buy, there's so much choice out there. There really is. So the typical questions that I'm receiving nowadays, it's not so much about which encoder you should buy, but what are you going to be doing with it, right? And I always ask someone, are you doing this for fun, or are you doing this for business? Because I think that our industry is really broken down into those two groups of people at the moment. And when I say for fun, I was talking to a school teacher that wanted to stream their local football game, and, she thought she was doing it for fun. She then wakes up on the Monday morning, phones me up and says it didn't work. And I said, so what, you were doing it for fun? She says, yeah, but all the parents were screaming and angry with me. Well, then it wasn't so much for fun. Found out what the problem was, and the problem was and is typically for most connectivity, right? How many times have you got to a location and you've not been able to get the connection that you need, right? It's a typical problem, and one that Teradek has taken to heart and tried to find every way possible to be able to get to a website, right? And our products are really based for the consumer, which we started with the video range, and then move up into the more professional products. And I'll explain why is one product more based to consumer as opposed to another based for the professional. Well, let's talk about the consumer range, the video and share link range, right? The video is, I would say, like 99% of the encoders out there, right? You put a video feed in this case HDMI, you set up your destination, like you do with everybody's, you press go live, assuming that you've connected to the internet, over an Ethernet connection or a Wi-Fi connection or even a cellular connection. You then pray to the gods of streaming that it gets there, and if it didn't, you typically have no idea why, right? How many times has that happened to you? I mean, there can be a number of reasons. I mean, my most favorite is the fact that someone shut down the ports that you needed. I mean, you have no idea. Who do you talk to? You're there to stream an event, and this beautiful location, as IT guy, decided to shut down the ports that you want to use. So, assuming that you've got the ports sorted out, what else can go wrong? Well, as I've mentioned, maybe last year I was doing a stream for the, the Olympic Committee in New York Times Square, where they were streaming some event, and they gave me a call. They wanted to use one of our gear, and I sent them an email that says, guys, I need 5 megabits per second. Typically, I ask for twice the amount that I need, because typically I get half the amount I want, right? And I needed an SDI feed with embedded audio, and they gave me the call time, turn up at 7 a.m., I was there, plugged in the Ethernet connection, said go live, nothing. It took about 3 hours to realize that the IT guy that had given me the gateway gave me the wrong gateway. So after fixing the gateway and then getting myself a live feed up to the Akamai servers, I realized that I was only getting a half a meg per second. This is because the person that sent out the order notice from NBC that was doing the stream, instead of writing 5 megabits per second, wrote 500 kilobits per second. So now, these are the typical kinds of problems that if you're going to get into streaming, you've got to be prepared to deal with. And I don't really want to give a product pitch, but I want to explain to you the techniques that we have used in order to get around these problems. Gotta love my iPad. All right. So, we spoke about the fact that the consumer's product is more the video family because we basically plug in a video feed, press go live, and pray. This is all well and good, but we needed something a bit more robust to be able to tell me about what was happening with my feed. And if you look on the slide here, I have something called the Teradek Core. So what Core enables me to do is to analyze the feed that I'm sending up to the cloud, right? So I, as someone that is having to offer a service to somebody, can confirm that my feed is now hitting the cloud. I will invite all of you to come up to my stand, and I'll show you and give you an in-depth demonstration to the core and how we show the lost packets and what tools we give you to be able to affect change. For example, do we route through a different part of the internet? Do you know that you can do that? Do you know how you would do that, right? When we did the Eclipse stream for NASA last month, we were using 6 cubes up to the core account, and from core to about 10 different platforms, YouTube, Facebook, live stream, all of the different social media platforms. And it was actually the first time I'd ever been in a room with technicians from each of those services and Akamai, and actually hearing the chatter that, hey guys, we're losing packets on the eastern seaboard, can we reroute through Iceland? I mean, I never knew that the internet lost packets. You just assume that once you get it into the cloud, you know, it's good. But these are the things that are now happening to us, that if you're going to get into this business, you need to know how you get around those problems. So how do we get up to the cloud, right? Well, we can obviously use Ethernet. We do that. That's probably the most reliable. I always, when I ask to start streaming or go to an event, I request, or in my prerequisite document, I ask for a nice Ethernet connection. How many times you get that? Not all the time. So we use not just Ethernet, not just Wi-Fi, not just a single 4G modem, but cellular bonding, which means I can turn up any location and bond multiple cell phones or cell connections together to give me that fat pipe in order to stream up to my core account and then from core to an unlimited number of destinations. These are the kind of tools that you're going to need if you're going to get into this business and be able to guarantee to someone that you're going to be able to do a stream for them. One of the advantages that we were able to do when we built the backpack, if you come down to my booth, we created our own USB modems. Those modems have an antenna that's about this big on, or as my Alabama TV station called them, he says, that's a big-ass antenna. And those big-ass antennas give me about 3 to 4 times the performance of a simple USB modem. I mean, if you look at the size of the antenna on your phone, you know, that's about 2 inches across. So what does that mean if I've got these big-ass antennas? It means that, as happened in the recent hurricanes, even when you can't make a phone call because the local cell tower is down, with these big antennas, we can hit cell towers 20, 30 miles away. What does that mean for us here and, you know, in the streaming world? Well, if you want to turn up in the middle of a concert where everyone's pulling out their phones and doing a stream, you've got to be able to reach antennas that those in the area can't. Using a backpack like this with those cell modems enables you to do that. We have companies like Live Nation that have strict requirements, even guaranteed Ethernet connections at their locations, but they always back themselves up with a separate path, right? So they'll use a couple of modems with an Ethernet connection so that if someone cuts that wire, they can still stream out. Now, some big news that we've had, or we're releasing, or now it was released a couple of months ago. Who's streaming here in H.265? That's a big buzzword in the streaming community at the moment. Why? Quite simply, half the bit rate for the same quality, right? It's all about saving bits, or twice the quality for half the bits, right? So this is something that, again, you in the industry have to know about because this is where everybody is moving. We've also just released this new protocol called SRT, which stands for Reliable Transport, which means that we've implemented error correction into that transport stream. so that, again, when we're trying to hit a CDN, we cover ourselves by adding a layer of protection so that if we do lose packets, we can retransmit them. I tested a week or so ago a 10% packet loss streamed to a Wowzer server using SRT and still got a clean picture in. We did a similar link with NBC in Tehran using a cube over a satellite link back to the station in New York using this protocol and got a beautiful picture in. So it's almost becoming a replacement for satellite in 99% of the situations because of these new technologies that over the years are starting to make IP video really, really feasible and replaceable for a satellite. So I wanted to brag about that case study that we did for NASA, right? People are still asking me or still saying, is streaming a viable technology? Is it going to replace, is it a trend? Is it going to fade away? I think you should all take a shot of that image because that 2017 solar eclipse was seen by, if you total up all those page views, it was 116 million views, which was 9 million more than the Super Bowl. So, I think that we're a sea change here this year, that streaming is absolutely considered a competitor to broadcast TV. And, I was saying the other week at a recent broadcast symposium, instead of you guys here, it was all VPs of TV station groups, and they're all here to learn about streaming. And I said to them that if Google or Facebook or Amazon decided to build a TV station, it would look very different from the way that we do things today, but it would all be built over IP in the cloud. And, this is the first time that I've seen Facebook at this trade show. And I think that we'll all agree that they're making a major play in building a TV network within that ecosystem. So, not going to touch on it too much, but, I said, what encoder do you buy? And I did want to throw in the fact that we've released a free version of our production switcher for the iPhone or iPad. That means that our products or our encoding solutions start from 0 upwards, meaning we really cross the gamut of starter, amateur, up to professional. Again, from kids doing college streaming up to NASA. I'm not sure how long I've been talking here, but if there are any questions, I'd love to ask, and I was hoping for some heckling, and I didn't get any.
We have time for a few questions, but first, a round of applause for John, who did a fantastic job. All right, really nail him to the wall. Give him a really hard one. Who's got a real hard question here? Give me your name and your question.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Ron. Not hard question. So what do you think about 4K? When it will take over, like HD rolled in starting 2007? What needs to happen for it to increase the demand, and
Sure.
When do you think it will happen?
That's a very good question, and it really depends on who you ask to hear the answer to that. Truth is, we're already streaming in 4K. Our iPad, our free version of the iPad, or our Sphere products that do the 360 streaming, is all 4K. I think that we're going to go 4K to CDNs, which are now supporting it quicker than we will go over the air. And I think that 265 will absolutely help us do that. I mean, you can download examples of 4K content from YouTube now, and it looks spectacular. I also believe that HDR may come before 4K, right? But again, as an encoder company, we'll support every protocol and every bit rate and every resolution that comes along. You know, we're very fast to implement different encoders.
Okay, that's all. Thank you, John, so much.